In this video, I want to talk a little bit about making your own supplies. You won't be able to necessarily make your own fabric unless you weave, and you weave on a very small gauge weaving loom. You could probably do it with a weave it and sew the pieces together, but you would still need some kind of a muslin or fabric lining because we're still talking about face masks. Now, the next face mask pattern that I'm doing right now is similar to and inspired by MASH, the Korean War, and surgeons. And what they look like is a piece of fabric or two layers of fabric in this case, about this big. This is the same as the no raw edges size, and this is for adults. It would be big enough to do this with. This is 8 3/4 by 7 inches. And I will post another video with the actual pattern. But this is about making your own supplies. I don't think COVID is going to go away. I think we're going to be needing to make face masks. I've been making them for the town, and I started to feel pressured that I couldn't make them fast enough for all the people that are going to need them. So we had our annual town meeting, and I have had a little bit of correspondence with the town administrator, and the different departments now have in their budget a way to purchase masks. So that's great. That takes care of the first responders, probably library people, town staff, recreation, which is all the kids programs. They have some budget, but I'm not sure if all the kids will be covered. The other problem is the kids that I'm seeing around town, their parents aren't making them wear them. So I don't know how much of a need that really is. It might go family by family. But what I want to do is focus on the MASH surgeon type patterns because they can fit anyone. Now, it was about a month ago that somebody mentioned that elastic was getting very hard to find in Ireland. We're going to have to keep making them. And this is kind of extreme and a little bit primitive or colonial, but you can make your own ties. Now, someone I know is using, I'm sorry my battery died there for a moment. Someone I know is using a quilting method to take yards and yards of fabric and make a binding, which, you know, is your typical fold-over bias binding, and then using this as the ties on a mask. Now, basically, the mask is 2 layers of fabric in a square. This is just one I just made it. I haven't finished it yet. But technically, then you take your square and you put 3-foot ties on it at the top and at the bottom, and it gets tied around the head. So this is one method, using 2 layers of fabric, making your own binding, and this would be instead of a short elastic length. And in some ways that's easier to sew because you don't need to deal with the elastic slipping or any of that. But at the same time, it's time consuming to make all the binding for the ties. So that's one method. Now I happen to make rope. It's very easy to have a lucid and make your own rope. It doesn't even take much yarn. So mine is going to have the same idea. I haven't really done it yet. It's right here. But for the ties, I'm using rope. So what I want people to think about is, where are we going to get the supplies? I can still get muslin fairly inexpensively. I can get wool, in my case free, from my brother. I am going to spin this wool very thinly, set the twist, and make the rope. Now you need a 3-foot piece of rope. So this is kind of, obviously this gives me like one mask a day, or maybe two, because I have to make the rope. I would spin the wool in advance. I have to make 2 3-foot lengths with a lucet for each mask. So altogether though, once I have the wool spun, maybe an hour for each mask. So it lengthens the time, but not much more than making your own binding bias tape. Bias binding tape. So I think that we're all going to have to slow down, and we're all going to have to look at other places for supplies. This is the Babes Little I'll get the correct name. I'm going to do a video on this spinning wheel anyway. I think it's the Little Linden spinning wheel. It's a charcoal wheel, and a wonderful way to spin yarn. It's portable, it's lightweight, it's plastic, it can be cleaned. But anyway, think about making your own rope, maybe cutting up clothes for fabric. T-shirts are really hard to sew through, I found out, once you get them pleated and layered. And think of rope and wool and spinning as an alternative to making fabric bias binding, because then you can save the fabric for the actual mask.